Hey, you guys. So excited that we have you guys here. First of all, thank you for your time. I know that it is limited. We've got G, Amy, and Emily. So fun to be here. I just want to welcome everyone to the Council of Moms. News flashes, hot flashes, and flashes of inspiration. You like that one? That's a good one.
We're in the right place.
Right?
Excellent.
Or how about this one?
What a
The
tagline.
Council of Moms. They don't listen to us, so we listen to each other. That's
So
what this is,
accurate.
right?
Wow. Yes.
Or I like this one because it's too accurate. The Council of Moms. No, we didn't borrow your phone charger. Do you know how? Do your kids ever do that? They come into my room and they're like, "Is this mine?" I'm like, "No, I actually
No.
just leave it there for sure. 100%
That is
it's mine."
hilarious.
Are you sure? Are you sure that's not mine?
Yeah. You have to
Yeah,
start
oh my
marking
gosh.
them.
Council of Moms.
Yeah.
We're sure this is our phone charger.
Yeah. Or the Council of Moms, please return my phone charger.
Yes, thank
That's
you.
my house.
That should be it.
Put
Can we get that
That's why you
on
put the tape.
t-shirts?
You got to put the tape on it so you
have to
can
mark
like
them.
See?
label. You
Yeah.
got to label it.
Yeah.
Little a heart out of nail polish.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
There
good.
you go. There you
Can't
go.
break it off. Listen, questions far and wide about parenting require a sense of humor, and none more than this first question that we're going to dive right into. How do I help my adult child transition to a productive, independent life? Is that a big enough question for us
Yeah,
to
who's
start
got
off
the
of?
answer? Who has
Now
the
listen.
answer to that?
Yeah, let's just start
Aren't
with a
we
hearty
all
round of
just
laughter.
saying that? Yeah, we first laugh, and I'm even like nervous to ask you guys, but I do get a lot of questions where people are like, "I just want them to be on their own. Like, is that okay? Like, how do some kids want to be independent, some don't?" And here's the other thing that I keep hearing too is it's different now. It's different than it used to be. So it's like we who are actively parenting adult children right now, we can't ask our parents. We can't look to our grandparents because it feels different.
Yeah.
And we're all saying it to each other. Do you agree? Let's start
I
there.
agree. Oh, yeah.
What do you
You
think
guys?
is different?
Them.
You want me to go? Yeah.
Yeah. Get
I
into
think-
it, Emily.
Well, we're parenting our kids way differently than our parents parented us. That's for sure. I know with my own adult child, graduating in the thick of pandemic and having like her last 2 years of high school be, overshadowed by the pandemic, this has changed a lot of things for ingoing college freshmen or, out of high school young adults. Their pattern is not our pattern. My parents didn't even have to say, "Hey, when you graduate from high school, you go to college and you live on your own and you live with roommates and you start trying to support yourself." They didn't even have to tell me that. That's just what you do. And I didn't even think about it. Never questioned it, which is great because I loved it and it worked out and it was really fun and I loved those years, but that's not the, I would say the norm anymore.
Yeah.
So,
What do you
I mean,
guys
it
think?
really does like beg the question, then how do I help my adult child
Harder. It's harder.
transition into a productive, independent life when everything's different?
That's the $1 million question, I guess, because when you did leave
Yeah.
high school and either go to college or move out of your house to start working, being in like a roommate situation or a dorm situation or just, going off to college or anything, internship, trade, it kind of forced you into that independent living. We don't do that so much anymore. And it's not just that kids aren't going to college. It's also that it's very expensive, almost impossible for young adults to, move into an apartment on their own and have a job and make ends
Sort of
meet. It's
priced it out for a lot of us.
Yes, 100%. And so now when people are saying, "Oh, I've been out of high school a couple of years, but I'm still living at home or I'm in my parents' basement or whatever," I'm like, good for you. That's great, but we got to find other ways to get them launching or maturing in those ways that they would have, I think, if they were, college freshmen or something
So what are
in
you
a dorm.
guys trying? What are you guys doing?
Well, I think if an adult child is in your home, and they're in that transition phase, I think setting some good boundaries is really important where you acknowledge their adulthood. And that's been hard for me. I'm a natural just take care of everything for everyone in a negative way. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, oh, I'll just do that. I could
Very
probably
much
just take
relate.
care of that. I'm an enabler. Okay, let's just call it what it is.
I support you.
That comes really easily to me. And so I've had to back off some things to say, okay, what would my expectations be? Or what would the things that they would be learning if they had moved out? And how do I start enforcing some of those things? I find myself having to often back away to have some more trust. One of my wisest friends says, as long as you are trying to run your kid's life, that there's not a job opening for them to run their own lives, right? If there's no vacancy in that role, then they'll never step up.
So true.
Yeah. So I've had to step back a lot and try to have some expectations, conversations about, helping with meals or what that looks like, expectations around, okay, I guess your room can be your private space where you can have it be as messy as you want, but it's time to contribute. I've also tried to reframe, you're not helping me around the house. I've been working on this for years with little success, but contributing, like this is contributing to the family, to the home. We're all here. Right. How do you want to contribute? What do you want to do? I mean, I'm not saying this is going really well and I have a great success story to share about it, but those have been, I think, setting boundaries for those kids who
Those
are still
great
with
questions,
us at home.
though, to say to an adult, to have them thinking about it too, of like, what are you contributing to the household? Like, yeah.
Because if they weren't in our house, they'd be having to do these things, Right. I mean, if they lived with roommates, they're not going to cook dinner for their friends and just leave it there for 3 days for you to clean it up, like.
Although I had some roommates who did that.
Right.
Yes, and we are no longer friends with those roommates 20
and
years
you know what?
later,
I'm not friends with those roommates.
Exactly.
True.
Yeah. Like there's no teacher like a peer, I think, to do that, right?
Yes, yes.
Our kids would be like, oh, I can't believe I just did that. And my roommates are so bugged. So much more effective than if I'm bugged with them.
Yeah, I love it how you sisters are mentioning that this transition should take place at a young age, because I feel like so many of the, that age group are just afraid of things. They're just nervous.
Yep.
And so we would send them off to stay with family for a summer. We would send them on what we call a pre-mission. It's like, hey, you finished your Eagle Scout or you finished your Young Women, like, let's send you on a trip. And so they would fly internationally. Luckily, we had family in the islands, but it was like, hey, let me learn that I can do things on my own. And then they were ready to transition and take on more. Because when it happens all at once, I feel like it could be very overwhelming for your child.
And if they're not going into like a structured, flight path, like a dorm or something like that, it is very scary. And no, that's great. I want to do that with my kids, like kind of instill that confidence in them, or little by little, so that when it is time to fly the coop, they're like, you know what, I can do this. I don't have to be afraid. And, I think everyone's afraid. Everyone's afraid. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And I would love for us, like as the parents in this new, never before unprecedented time of parenting,
uncharted waters.
Yeah, I'll choose whatever metaphor. I wish that we could change the dialogue where you see now so many reels and memes about, oh, I'm adulting so hard, in a negative connotation. Right. And I would love for us to be like, no, adulting is great. And I think that I know I've done this. I have inadvertently been growing up is the worst. And I didn't know I was doing it, but it seemed to me, and I could be wrong, but it seems to me in generations past, people who were like, I want to be an adult. I want to be on my own. There was a sense of pride and accomplishment. And that's what you wanted to be a homeowner. You wanted to get married and have kids and reach these milestones. And it seems like we've overcorrected. I mean, everyone's different and everyone's milestones are going to be great and different, which is totally appropriate. But are we excited, and are we telling them that this transition into an independent, productive life is actually really great? And so I'm rethinking that. It's a little too late for me, but It's never too late.
That's how I feel.
Because I have one kid at home, and she's like, "I want to live with you forever," and I was like, "Ooh, I didn't do my job. What am I doing? Am I enabling? Oh, let's go to
That's
Taco Bell
really
again.
hard.
Oh, why
It's
did I
hard
do
to
it? Because I
navigate
want to go to
that.
Taco Bell. But it really is a hard balance.
It's so, I think I've done that too. And when I say we're raising our kids differently than our parents raised us, one thing that I always think about is our kids are way more aware and in tune with like life hardness that we go through. Like when I was young and my parents, if they were dealing with anything, like things between them, things with careers, other siblings in the house or money, whatever, it was so secret. Like you don't
They
talk
didn't talk
about
about
it,
it.
And it's
I
not
didn't
like,
learn the family drama until I was an adult. Yeah.
Exactly. And now it's like, clearly, or, we don't spill all of our problems into the laps of our children's. No. And when we have, money things and stuff, we don't want them to know that because we don't want them to stress. But they're so much more aware of like of real life challenges and hard stuff that we go through that I don't think we were aware as a generation, the things our parents dealt with. And we're so much more open now about our feelings and our mental health and just struggles in general. And I think that's one of the things that makes these teenagers or young adults go, yeah, adulting sucks, because it kind of does.
You're not helping, Emily.
I'm sorry.
Well,
I'm sorry.
actually, I feel like as adults ourselves, right? We're a little bit further along the path, but we actually didn't hide things from our kids. Like they would know when dad made a career change and they would know when the budget got tight. They would know when they'd have to get a part-time job to pay for their AP test. Like they would know those things. And they saw us going back to school. Like it was so hard. We lived in the islands for a while. And then it was like, I don't know, the Great Depression of 2008 and everybody, like the job market and the housing market crashed. And we did along with it. Like we didn't have the degrees to get us the jobs that used to be available to us. And so my husband and I actually went back to school at that age with these kids. And it was like, I'm not going to do that, Mom. I'm not going to wait to get my degree when I have 5 kids in tow. And I was like, great. Because, you have to kind of take on life as it comes. And certainly as parents, we want to show them good options. But when things are down and when things get hard, we don't want them to be afraid, like to be paralyzed in, I can't do anything. It's like,
You want them
no,
to have that
you got to
sense
get
that
up
they
and
can
get a
do
job.
it.
And no, you got to go to school. And no, you've got to feed the kids and it's going to be okay. So
that's a great
hopefully
example.
we didn't
for them
damage
to
them too hard.
No, I think that's a great example.
So great.
That's a really good life experience for them to see, like, oh, you don't have to choose your career as soon as you're out of college and stick with that forever. And, if it doesn't work out, you pivot and I think that's a great example.
Yeah, I do
Pivoting
too.
is good.
And I'm thinking too about what Emily said about the pandemic. So many of our young adults, we all went through this wild time, right? But for them, such a formative time in their lives. And I just wonder how maybe we keep that in mind as we assess whether our kids are finding the independence that we maybe expected them to find, or whether they're following the path that we wanted to. We might not just quite know yet how that affected kids and how that will play out. Not that they get a pass or anything, but that maybe it helps quiet our internal worry about what on earth are they going to do, or how is this going to play out?
I think in some way it delayed them. Like it caused a little bit of a delay, and that's okay. That's all right.
And maybe just for life experience. And so the point of connection that we used to have with our, like, about high school graduation or going to prom and stuff like that. Some of our kids didn't get those like weird, just quirky milestones that don't necessarily mean anything, but it is then one more difference between generations, between parent and child, of being able to relate to each other. And so I really like, Amy, that you put that point up of like, we may not even be aware of all of the ways that it changed them in a certain time. And so it's this idea too, I think, in the question of like, how do you help them transition into a productive adult that is maybe less prescriptive, like do these things.
Right.
Yeah.
You'll know that they've transitioned if they've graduated from college, if they have bought a home, if they have gotten married, whatever it is, that transition, maybe changing the transition instead of forcing the kid to adapt to a path that is not realistic.
As parents, sometimes we think, oh, we know all the answers because we're the parent. But this change in society, it doesn't afford us to know those answers all the time. And so we as parents got to be okay with that. Like, it's okay if you don't have all the answers, but maybe we can work and figure it out together. So I love it that
Yeah,
you mentioned
together.
that we have
I like
to be
that.
open to learning ourselves, right?
I think involving our kids in the conversation of what that transition looks like and what are the goals that they might have toward transitioning to more independence, instead of having this checklist in our minds, like, nope, nope, nope. Oh my gosh, they're failures. We get to say,
Right.
what's important to you about independence right now? And what does this look like to you? How can we help you foster it? I think having an open and respectful conversation about that, where we're not, expressing our disappointment or criticizing their choices just because that turns them off, right? That's not a way to have a productive conversation. We can model a meaningful adult conversation too with them. And what do they want to work toward, I think can be really helpful.
And when they say what they want to work towards, then that helps them to learn how to dream, right? And to imagine.
Totally.
And then you can be on their team for that. If you
Right.
don't know, or if it's just nebulous or it's unspoken or it's just implied, it's not as fun, I think, as like dreaming and kind of like, well, what are all the ways problem solving together? What are all the ways that we could try to do this together? Yeah, I think that changes the idea.
For us at our house, since our adult child isn't enrolled like full-time in college, I've realized that like if they're not following that prescribed, pattern that most of us went through as youth, they got to find a commitment somewhere. Like you either need to work some different jobs to find out what you're most interested in and to meet people, or you need to take some classes at a school to find out what you're most interested in and meet some people. And I've realized that like, I don't even care anymore if college degree is the goal. I just think getting into a classroom setting just to learn some things is totally valuable. And this is one thing we keep talking about with our adult child because she's not on board with going to school full time. But I'm like, I don't care about that either. I don't care about the degree, but I do want you to find out what you're most interested in. And I want you to meet some people and to just get out of your comfort zone. And I feel like, you do that at a school setting, at a work setting, at a church setting. And so for us, we have to encourage those because that's not going to happen on its own. So without putting like rules or stipulations or,
I like that.
without forcing it, we're saying, hey, these are things that'll help you take flight or help you make goals or find out what you really want to do. And so, I mean, there has to be something right like that where they're involved in a thing. And even if a degree isn't the goal, so be it,
I do think though too, it is important for parents to have other people that are not you on their kids' side.
Big time.
In helping them with that transition to an independent life, because there are I think sometimes our voices do become like the Charlie Brown, wah, 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 where they are just numb to it. Like I've heard my mom say this a million times, and then and then somebody else will say it the exact same thing, and it just
and suddenly
comes through clear.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. That's the thing. As moms, we don't care about getting the credit. We just care that the thing is done.
Right.
And so I do feel
We
like
might care just a little bit about
I
getting
care too much. I care too much. To be clear, for the record, I'm pretending like I don't care, but I want to get all the credit.
I'm past that point. I'll give any of you the credit.
As long as it happens. No, but
I like how you showed the difference, Emily, of, having those set expectations and making progress. Like I feel like making progress needs to be part of this journey. When my husband and I were raising our kids, he made this spreadsheet and it listed all the dates and the ages of the kids and when they're finishing elementary and when they're finishing middle school and when they're finishing high school and when they're going to college, right? And he gave it to them during like a family home evening when they're 11 years old. And they're like, oh my gosh, I got to do all of this in this window of time. And of course, much of it was done, but much of it wasn't, as they get older. But setting the ideal of progression, like don't waste this time because things can happen at this age and you're waiting for a big thing to happen, but you haven't even done the little things. Like you got to go do the little things in order for more things to come. And so I feel like sometimes the kids are like, oh, I'm not going to do anything because I don't feel like doing this at this time. And it's like, well, what are you doing? Like you're saying, are you learning a trade?
So
are you studying? Are you building a skill set? Because
and they
those
think that
are the
time
life
is far
skills.
away. They think that future self is so far away, and it's not.
So that's the other question I was going to ask is there are certain things like we can say progress is great, just making progress, which I actually really believe. And then that transition might not look like it did for us. It may take longer, but there are some certain dates, like when my oldest turned 26 and I was like, you can't be on my insurance anymore. Like things like that. Or there are unexpected things like the economy or job availability or whatever it is that is outside of their control and that certain doors have been closed to them that they didn't think were closed. So
Lisa, I can't believe
that,
you have a 26-year-old, first of all.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Bless your heart.
I'm like 26. Wow, that's amazing. But I hear you. I had to do the same thing.
I have the cortisol levels to prove it. But bless their hearts so and bless my oldest child, Miles. Shout out to Miles for being the first pancake, right? Like of saying, when are you going to graduate? And it took him 7 years to graduate from college. And he and I laugh about it now. He's like, Mom, I'm so sorry. It took me. And now, because I 100% pressured him, get through as fast as you can and do this and I did not help that situation. So now I say to him, I'm sorry about that. I don't know what I was on my timetable, not yours. And also you graduated. Like you have this thing, you know what you love. And I'm sorry that I kind of pushed you in a way that I didn't have to. Right?
We don't know better.
Yeah. We don't know better.
That's
okay. This reminds me of something. Oh, here we go again. Can we circle back to something I said earlier when you're saying that you didn't help? I want to say about boundaries, just in the back of my head. I'm like, we can do boundaries with love and kindness. So we don't have to be, it's like our expectations for our boundaries for our kids, that's business, and our relationship with them, that's personal. And so I just wanted to add that plug because it can be so frustrating
say a little
to
bit
have
more about that. Yeah.
That's
I love
these
that.
adult kids. Well, I think sometimes when we hear boundaries, we might think that's got to be this hard line and we've got to be hard nosed about it. And if someone violates our boundary, it's like, we throw them out of our house or whatever, that these are like times to fight and argue, and they don't have to be. But it takes, we got to get G's husband on the job when the boundary is crossed.
Totally.
He's got to come in and just, and enforce that consequence. Right. So I think that, when we don't have very good training, I think, to enforce a boundary kindly. We don't quite know how to do that, to be able to say, and I think talking about ahead of time, here's my expectation for when you're in our home, here's an amount of rent you need to pay, or here's the way you need to contribute. If you don't do that, here's the consequence, and to be able to enforce that consequence with kindness and love, and like a business interaction, it's not any kind of vindictive, like, or you disappointed me so much. You know what I mean? That kind of like, there doesn't have to be the emotional weight to it. There's just, they cross the boundary. So this is what happens next. And we move on. I think that creates a more helpful learning environment than like,
I love that.
Shame
because,
and blame.
It's true. How you frame the conversation matters, right? Like we just finished reading Crucial Conversations for Work, and really it brought to light, how you're coming across to a person. And so my husband will say, what are you doing? Why aren't you doing this? And my daughter, her self-talk is like, I'm a loser. I'm not meeting up to the expectation, because that's what they're hearing, even though you're not saying it. And then I come back and I'm like, hey, we love you. We want to be your biggest supporters. We just want to know how we can best do that. And so it kind of dialed it back, like, Dad means well, but this is really what we're trying to say to you. So I think, like you're saying, if you can remember how you're coming across, then maybe it'll help kind of bridge those feelings of inadequacy.
Absolutely. Oh, this has been such a good discussion. Thank you to the Council of Moms, G, Amy, and Emily. I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom and helping us, because it's all hands on deck as we're helping our adult children transition into adulthood.
Sure.
So
I need more hands on my deck.
amen. And this is what the Council of Moms is for.
I love it.